Good evening. I'd like to call the Alton Board of Selectmen's meeting, April 20th, 2020, 6 p.m. to order. You please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, a moment of silence. All, if you can lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Until further notice, to keep our members and staff safe and to comply with the RSA 91-A, the State of Emergency and Governor's Orders, restrictions on public gatherings, the Town of Alton is moving from in-person meetings to remote audio participation meetings. To remotely attend this audio only, visit our website, www.alton.nh.gov, for telephone access and remote access instructions. Under News and Announcements on the home page, or telephone the Selectmen's office, 603-875-2113 or 603-875-0229, between 8 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. for the dial-in code and the meeting ID for each Selectmen's meeting. This time, gentlemen, they need approval of the agenda or any amendments to the agenda. There is one deletion, emergency management update.
Add sidewalks.
Under new business?
Sure.
The two would be sidewalks.
Sidewalks, the dock down by Shibley's, and the water department.
And 4 would be water department?
Yeah. I'm gonna wait to see how we do on the Zoom.
I'd also like to make an amendment to tonight's agenda, also to discussion of a collapsed retaining wall abutting the Harmony Park new construction wall.
That's wall next to Harmony Park.
It had me back on here and I skipped it.
Okay.
Bob?
All right. Gentlemen, the agenda has been amended to delete emergency management update, and also to add underneath new business, number 2, sidewalks, number 3, docks, number 4, water department, and 5, collapsed wall next to Harmony Park. Do I have a second to that?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. For any further discussion? I'll poll the board. Bob?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Virgil?
Yes.
Ruben, yes. All in the affirmative. Motion passes. So we'll move on to submission of public comments and concerns. Last week, we did get an email from Ray and Barb Howard on Monday, April 13th, 2020 at 3:54 p.m. to the Board of Selectmen. Subject question and public input. My question is from Mr. Howard and Mrs. Howard. My question is under Executive Order number 12 on RSA 91-A, paragraph 4. To further implement these orders and recommendations requiring RSA 91-A, colon 2, paragraph 3C, that each part of a meeting of a public body be audible or otherwise discernible to the public at the location specified in the meeting notice. As the location of this meeting is waived for the duration of the state of emergency declared in Executive Order 2020-04, so long as the public body, A, provides public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. Why are you meeting without fulfilling these requirements, especially when we have an IT staff person that we pay to provide this service? This letter was forwarded up to the town attorney. Liz has also reached out to the Howards to ask specific questions because we do have audio here, plus we are also on Zoom. The attorney feels that we are meeting the requirements of the governor's orders. I have to agree with them. We do not have a public building open that public can go into, but that's the reason being is for the safety of our staff, and also if we can only allow 9 in at the time, because the standing orders of the governors are 10 or more shall not be allowed to gather. So I feel we've done what we've required to do by the governor's orders. I don't know how you gentlemen feel. Liz can elaborate more on it if she'd like. But she is waiting to hear back on specifics from Mr. Howard of why they might not feel we're not meeting those requirements.
Have we checked with anybody to see
where we're not getting people on it to see if they've tried and can't get on it?
Well, that's why we left the telephone number at the very beginning of the meeting to call us if they're having problems.
We haven't received any calls.
So,
Or
we're doing
email.
everything we can do at this time.
Yep.
And then again, I would encourage the public, if they have any questions for the Board of Selectmen, to write us, email us, or write a letter to the Board of Selectmen, or drop a letter off at the town hall doors. It will get to the town secretary, Mary Jarvis, and she will get it into our agenda so we can answer the questions of the public. I'm still hoping that we will hear from some, and I can read some more in there, or you guys can help me. How's that? You guys have any more discussion on Mr. Howard's, or are you satisfied with my comments that I made?
I think they're fine, especially, the last time we met, the select board, I didn't know we were on Zoom. So we did go into other possibilities.
I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
We received this April 14th.
Yes, sir.
Said you responded back to Mr. Howard.
Liz has contacted him to ask him for specifics, but she has not heard anything back from them yet.
When did you contact him?
I believe it was the following day.
On a weekday?
Yeah.
Be around the 15th or 16th?
Yeah, it may have been the 14th. It was either that Tuesday or Wednesday, the 14th or 15th. I'd have to check my email.
So, okay, thank you.
Moving on to new business, request for a hawker and vendor permit, baked, brewed, and organically moved. The applicant would like to request a waiver for the hawkers and peddlers license for this coming year. Last year, we paid $500 to be an alternate, and we only did events to help community events in the high school with their events. We'd like to help the community, but we did not make enough to justify a $500 fee. Recently purchased a property in Altonet and will be moving the business to that location. We are hoping that since we will be operating out of the town, that you might consider waiving the fee this year.
I'm gonna waive them for everybody.
Well, they're just asking us. We haven't made that decision
I mean, we wondered, we have to waive them all, I would think.
yet. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
That's for a year, right?
This is for a calendar year, yes.
So, so anybody that gets the license, they can basically operate all they want.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But my question is going to be, and we recently purchased a property, we're moving the business to that location. So if they're going to move that location and they're not going to venture out within the community, then they would not have to need a license because they'll be on their own private property.
That's what my question would be, is do they intend to still drive the truck out to sell their product out of the vehicle the same way they did? Or are they gonna use their brick and mortar business?
So if we could get,
Some clarification on that?
yes,
If you give them the license,
and I would
you
be
can go anywhere.
right to,
And they've been getting the license, they're just saying that they didn't make enough
I
money
would
last
state
year.
her name, but I can't read her.
Genevieve should actually,
If they're gonna, if they're not,
allow her to be on mute.
Yes, if we can have her
If you
unmuted, that
give them
would
the
be
license,
fine.
you can use the truck.
What are we gonna do, waive everybody's fee?
they said they're gonna move the business to a building.
Hello.
Hi, Genevieve.
Hi,
Ruben Wentworth
everybody.
here.
Hi, thank you. I
Okay, so
couldn't
we
hear a
did-
bit of the last, I'm so sorry. I couldn't hear a bit of the last conversation because it seemed like everybody was talking. So I'm not sure if I know if there's a question for me.
Okay. I guess I'm Ruben Wentworth, the chairman. So I guess my first question is to you, do you still intend on driving around town and parking in different locations?
So obviously things have changed since my initial request. My intent now is to park my truck on my property at 915 Suncook Valley Road and operate the truck from that location solely until, I'm pretty sure most of my events will be canceled for the rest of the summer, but if I wouldn't need to do anything on any public property in Alton for the rest of this year.
Okay. So my feeling as one of the selectmen, I won't answer for the other four, if you're on your own private property, and as long as it's a commercial piece of property and the town has approved it, you should be able to sell there without you having to get a hawker vendor's license. That's my feeling of the ordinances. If you go within the community, now as far as the school, last year you said you did the high school event. I don't know why we'd be even involved in that, because that would be separate from us, because I don't think any of the other lunch trucks or lunch diners, however you want to put them, came to the town and asked for a hawker's vendor's license either.
Well, for their one, I believe for their one specific event, it was waived. So they had a food truck festival, and that was coordinated by one of the groups at the school, and I believe they came to the town and got the fee waived.
So I'm gonna let the other board members ask you some questions. I'll go to Virgil next.
No, I'm all set.
Paul?
This is Paul LaRochelle. Again, I just asking again, are you gonna use the truck off the private property, your property? Or you're gonna work out of your truck on your properties strictly?
Yeah, so I will be working out of my truck on my property only.
Okay,
Yep, well, in that case.
thank you. That answers that.
Bill Whitman, that means I don't think you need a vendor's license if you're not gonna be driving around.
Well, does that come under a?
Wait a minute, Virgil.
As long as your property, as Ruben said, is in the commercial zone.
Bob?
So,
Okay, Bill just said, of course, you have to have, if you're gonna be serving food, that has to be commercial property, I would think, Mr. Chairman.
Well, it could come underneath the home base business, and I'm not sure on all the zoning regs. But,
Does John go out and, inspect the truck, or does the state?
I think the
State
does.
does. Genevieve, the state of New Hampshire inspects your truck for your food license, correct?
yeah, so I have all of the state licenses that I need, a food inspection as well as Serve Safe, and pretty much everything that's needed I have. The property is zoned rural. It's on 28 right next to Camp Mytina. That kind of eyesore of a building. It was like, it's white, but it had all sorts of those like carports on it. I don't know if you remember which one it is.
Right, I remember which one. It's the old Half Moon Store property, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So since then, we've taken all that down and kind of made it look a little palatable. But it is a rural zone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And maybe at the next meeting.
My feeling is she's gonna keep the truck on her
Wait,
property.
one at a time, guys, because it echoes in there and they can't hear us. It just comes.
My feeling is she's gonna keep the truck on the property, not go around to the different events, and I don't think she'll need one.
Oh,
I don't think she will either, need that, but I would like to look in the zoning book for the rural zone, for running a business out of the rural zone.
Well, that was a store for years,
Wait.
that Royal Zone.
Yeah.
That was Half Moon Store
That was
for
happening.
30 years, 40 years.
so what if we put it to Geneva this way? Geneva, as long as you're gonna be on your own property, not going throughout the town and stopping and selling your goods, I believe the board's in consensus that you will not need a hawker vendor's permit. But the only thing is, what we're saying, we're not giving permission to set up on your property until, I guess, you contact Mr. Devers through the building inspector's office and code enforcement office to make sure you have the right requirements to be out there. I guess that's what I would suggest to you. I'm not telling you to do
Right.
that, but I'm suggesting.
So I actually spoke with him this morning, because I assume that all of you know that I'm hoping to open a cafe there, which because of COVID, all of the funding for the project has kind of been put on hold. So I called John because I was hoping to you know, hoping he could kind of help me figure out what it is that, what I would need or what I should be asking you gentlemen tonight. And he seemed to think, he said that he does not know when I would be able to go, like when they're having the ZBA meeting. They haven't figured out if they're able to do that. He seemed to think that I could get permission from you to have to run the truck. Since it's, you know, it's not, you know, I'm not asking permission to open the cafe there, just the truck.
Well, that, I guess I'd have to turn, I have to turn that over to the town administrator to look into that further, because the selectmen really do not have jurisdiction over the ZBA when it comes to zoning ordinances. So I guess what we'd have to do is table this at this point now, because we can't give you permission to be on your own property. You have the right to do that. We can't require you, is my feeling of the interpretation of the hawkers and vendors license and ordinances. I don't feel we can require you to have a license or require you to pay for one being on private property. So I guess what I'd like to do is have the town administrator look into this a little further with Mr. Devers.
Okay.
And have her and Mr. Devers have a conversation, get back with you, and maybe set up another meeting for next week. Would that be suitable to you?
Yes, that's fine. Should I follow up? Who should I follow up with? I just want to make sure that I can kind of move forward without, like, I just don't want to get forgotten. So if I can follow up with someone, I would rather do that.
Hold on just a second.
I will call her once I have an answer.
Elizabeth Dion, the town administrator, will call you once she talks to John. So you should hear from her this. Does that sound good?
That sounds great. Thank you guys so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for your time and patience.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great night.
You too, ma'am. So
Okay,
this will be
bye-bye.
tabled until next week, folks. Do we have Josh so we can disconnect? Okay.
Somebody called his office phone, you know, that's on the agenda, or?
Yeah. I just wanted to wait till we moved on that further business, just in case Genevieve was still attached to us. All right, gentlemen, the second is sidewalks. I'm going to let Virgil talk about this, and I'll come in after him, only because he came to me about it. We tried to have it fixed. It's not fixed to mine or his liking that we've seen, so I'll let him go.
Sidewalk in front of Village Store, the crosswalk, goes right across the whole front of it. An older gentleman got out of the car, stepped right in the hole, and fell over. So down St. Reuben says, we gotta do something, patch it. They went out and they patched just very little of it.
Who did the highway?
Yeah, but some of it stayed, some of it's highway. It's all pretty well crumbled in there.
It is. It's getting worse.
And we've got money in the sidewalk fund. It might be worth putting a concrete, even if we had to go an 8-inch or a 12-inch. And put a concrete walkway across there. For one, it would show up more. And it would last a hell of a lot longer than the 1-2-inch pavement. Because it's a mess. Somebody's gonna get hurt.
They're about 40 feet.
Probably
Oh, more than that.
60 feet, probably 80 feet.
You're taking the whole distance.
Yeah.
From the road,
Yeah.
all the way to where it meets the other side of the telephone pole.
Yeah, because it falls apart every year.
It's getting worse.
And I witnessed an older gentleman that just stepped out of the car and went right over. And it's just not good. I mean, some of those holes are 4 or 5 inches deep.
I went down after Virgil came back and saw me again. I went down and looked at it. None of the holes are on the Village Store side. It's all between the crosswalk and the State Road white line. I would like to see maybe Mr. Roberts get in touch with the DOT, see if there's some way we could work together on the project there, that we possibly do our sidewalk, maybe either concrete or cut it out, and then relay it, repave it, all the way out to the white line, but see if DOT can come in and help us with some of the expenditures to see what can be done. Because all they do is they keep filling the holes, they keep coming, it just keeps coming out.
Well, all the
Where
pavement's
we-
pretty broke. I mean,
And where we only patched part of the hole, we didn't take care of the problem. All we did was put patching in there on the white line of our white line, but the state hole is still there, so the water goes underneath, the coal patch comes back out. And stopping there tonight on the way down, there's rocks all through there that are being kicked out of the holes. So we either gotta go back every day and sweep it up, which we don't, or we need to fix it, get it done right and do it right, you know, final time. But see if we can get the state to work on this, because we'd be working within the state right away and see if they could even pave their part, put new pavement down. So I didn't know, and then Virgil come to me, we chatted about it a little, so I didn't know what you guys might think about that, maybe having the town administrator get a hold of Ken. I could meet him down there, Virgil could, and go over exactly what we thought, but the crosswalk would go the whole distance.
The whole distance.
So that's,
the only way to do it,
yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, do we know where the property line is there?
we don't have a property line there. What we are in the state's right away.
we're responsible for our crosswalks and sidewalks.
So this is why it would have to be a joint agency, project.
It'd be a good idea to come
Well,
get in contact.
if that's in the state right away,
Yes, sir.
well, we definitely have to coordinate it with the state.
Mhm.
Yes.
It's not something we can.
But this is
Throw a
the,
little patch on it.
you know, and this is a project that possibly could get done this summer versus
Yeah, that's-
waiting for a year to go by. We do have money in the sidewalk fund.
That is bad there.
It is, I was just there today. It's-
Well, I witnessed somebody falling there last week, was it last weekend?
Yep.
And it just ain't good.
No, it needs to be corrected.
I mean, we're responsible for the sidewalks to make them decent.
I mean, measurement would have to be done off the center line to make sure everything's within the state right away. I'm assuming it is, but I won't say 100% sure.
Yeah, that's,
Really don't know. We'd have to,
does somebody know?
state of New Hampshire should have a measurement off their center line, yes. Maybe we could have.
That'd be our first step. Find out
You
what that-
gentlemen entertain the idea of having the town administrator get in touch
I
with
think
Ken?
that's what we should do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next one you had, Virgil, was number 3 on docks.
Dock down by Shibley's. I know it got voted down, but I think we have to seriously look at that because it's coming off his building. I was down there this weekend looking at it.
Mhm.
It looks like the cribs have rolled underneath. That's what it looks like, because the carrying beam, everything's rolled right out. It's ripping out of his stairs. When he come out of his building, that whole end of the dock is like this,
Yes.
where he's walking. That's a town dock. We've got to either brace it up down in there somehow to make that safe so his employees don't end up going through that, or that ripping out and something happening. And I think we've got to seriously discuss that to figure out either how to shore it up. I mean, to me, I think you can put the excavator right on the top of the grass right there,
Mhm.
reach down, lift the whole top of it off.
But it is more than that. The
Oh, yeah.
decking itself needs to be ripped off.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah,
It is
but I think
rolled.
it should be secured somehow. I mean, we might be able to jack it and roll them cribs back.
Mhm.
I'm sure the top of the cribs are probably
It
gone.
should have, it could be done, I think.
Securing is about all we can do, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's the
Something's
security.
gotta get done
I
before.
think personally, I think they're gonna be all right coming up and down the stairs, going in and out of the building, right? 'Cause they're only up against the building. They just rebuilt those stairs last year.
No, but the dock's already pulled out of, away from the stairs like this,
Mhm.
sinking right
It
down.
is, it is.
Joists and everything.
It's all one piece, yeah.
Guys, one at a time, because it's garbling back and forth.
But yes, I think we ought to address it, yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Hold on just a second. Call in saying that some selectmen cannot be heard. I let him know that I would let the board know. Bill and Bob, they can't hear you.
Should I move that out to the center?
Should we move that to the center of the room?
I can speak louder, Mr. Chairman.
I'll try to.
Yeah, sure. What happens if mic's on?
Can't,
Probably
the
echo,
mics
right?
don't, the mics don't go into
Won't
that,
go through there.
and you might get echoing back and forth.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Holt.
being a new member of the board, but also last year I was on the budget committee, reference Shibley's. I am not up to speed. I don't have all the information possibly that you have. During the budget process, the town brought it before the budget committee, the warrant article. When it was originally presented, there was questions about ownership of the docks. During the presentation, words we used like it's a gray area, we're looking into it, so forth. Not being a selectman, I do not know what the situation is there. I have done a lot of research on it. I have a copy of the lease, I have a copy of the tax card, some other stuff. And it all leads to the town doesn't own the property, possibly.
Now, wait a minute.
Lumber, let him finish.
As being a new member, I don't know how far you've gone with it before I got here. And before, I think I have to be given some firm evidence that the town owns it. And I did not bring my pamphlet with me tonight because I didn't know it would be on the agenda. I have a pamphlet full of documentation. It doesn't sound good for ownership, town ownership.
Now, wait a minute.
Hold on. You all set, Bob?
But now,
In 2000, this come up because they pulled a permit from 2011. We looked up that permit that Lauren was screaming about, the town don't own that dock. That permit was for his house up on 11D, to redo his dock up there, the deck and the dock. Had nothing to do with the pier. We own the land and lease 10 feet around the building. He owns the building. We own the dock on both sides of that.
all right, I don't have my paperwork with me. Paperwork tells me a little different on that permit that you're talking about. I don't know if it's the same one. It's the one I have information on. But if you read the lease, to the best of my knowledge, I am not a lawyer, and I'm not trying to be, believe me. But I try to read the lease, try to make sense of it. I talked to Ruben, the 10-foot curtilage around the property is not mentioned in the lease, or the lease I have about that. That dock is connected to his building, or the other dock, that's a restaurant platform out in the front, you know.
Yeah, the deck.
The rear
And that's the way that building was built, to the best of my knowledge. It is not hooked to the town docks. Why, I don't know. But over the years, I was standing on that dock, this was about 10 years ago, and there was a gentleman there, I said, how come they never hook these two docks together? And of course he says, well, that's because Shipley owns that dock. This is town docks. I said, oh, okay. But that's just where I came from. So then I looked into it a lot more, and everybody I talked to told me, well, that's Shipley's dock. That's not the town dock. I said, oh.
Gone down and talked to Dave?
Whoa. Now, if you go down there today, there's still a sign there that says, for Shipley's patronage only, something like that, don't quote me on the exact words. And that means only Shipley's boats are supposed to pull up there to utilize the restaurant. That's what the sign says. I'm sorry. Now, also, Shipley's been paying taxes on that for quite a few years. It's spelled right out on the tax guy, right on his tax bill. So it sounds like to me that he thinks he owns that dock or something. These are smart business people. I've been in business. And believe me, I'm not paying taxes on a piece of property I don't own. I'm sorry. So
if I may,
All set, Bob?
I think he always thought he had a portion of it. Now, that deck is 40 feet long. he believed that he always thought closest to his building, that first 20 feet was allowed for him to dock on. I never think or thought that he ever thought the rest of that dock was his. Secondly, the stairway going down to that dock is not Shibley's. Where would that stairway go? Nowhere? Would it go just to the water and jump in? The town owns that stairway. That goes down with the railing, down to that dock, always has.
The town, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, the town, yes, owns that stairway, the
Yeah.
town owns the land. There's no argument about that. If the town decide to put a stairway there, they could put 10 stairways there if they wanted, because they own that land. I'm sorry,
But
they
you're not
don't
gonna have
own
it
the
go to
dock.
nothing.
On his tax card, it's spelled right out, 11, don't quote me again, I don't have my paperwork, 11 by 40, the whole dock. It's spelled right out in that tax card, and he pays taxes on it. Now, that's my.
I've gone down and I've talked to him, Mr. Shibley. And he says he doesn't own it, the town owns it.
I don't blame, I'm not, if you read the lease, it also states he's responsible for all repairs on him, I don't know the exact wording, but buildings.
And he was gonna,
Now, sure, if I owned it, I wouldn't want to have to pay $80,000 a year for the repairs myself either, if the town wants it. But I would like to see some proof that the town owns that dock. If that can be proved to me, okay, nothing looks like it to me.
he was willing to pay for the 10 feet that
I'm talking about the whole dock.
Bob, just go back to one point about why the town never extended down. The town did extend 4 more fingers down towards the pier, but they stopped. They stopped spending money in the bay. They didn't want to spend any more money in the bay. That's why there's such that space now. That space was even bigger back in the 90s.
Right.
Now it was time to maybe think about bringing more, because a lot of times you can't dock a boat in there because people go in, they sit there and they don't move and it's filled. You've seen the bay blocked up. As far as the 40-foot piece of pier down by the Shibleys, I think what we need to do is have town administrator get us all our paperwork in, because I don't know if everybody still has their papers on it. Get a letter from the town attorney, have him review everything, and have him come out and give his legal opinion of it. And then we bring it up for another meeting this summer,
And can we have the tax,
one at a time.
Something like that.
I'm going to get to her, Liz, in just a second.
and can we have the tax assessor dig out the old deeds for that?
All the old deeds, but we have.
Go from when Madeline Adams had it into the town hands. And that'll tell us what the dock is.
But we have to go by what the current lease says as of today. Because the selectmen in the past might have done something in the past to extend that 40 feet out. That's, okay? So we could go back and review it since the Shibleys have on. At least have the town attorney look at it, give us his legal opinion on it. Look back at the lease, have the new assessor, because the new assessor's starting on board with us. Have him review it. So this is going to take more than just a week. It's going to be a couple of weeks down the road before this comes back to us.
May I? Yes. Back this past fall, this early fall, Liz, town administrator, Jim Sessler, myself, and Mr. Shibley all stood on that dock and discussed it. And he was totally in favor of the town doing anything and everything they needed to do to research, total in cooperation and research done on the tax deed, the tax, everything that got involved with that for the years that he has owned it and previously. And he wants to work forward with the town to do whatever they need to do that. So Mr. Sessler is looking into it and has been working on it.
Liz?
Is there anything else you want to add?
I wanted to add that during that meeting this past fall, David Shibley stated to us he really wasn't sure who the owner was in the background. It's in the past. There are indicators that lean towards the town being the owner, several indicators. The records are not good going back.
Have we gone to registry of deeds?
Well, let her continue on, then you ask her.
And so like Paul said, we are still working on it and looking at it to move forward. There are more indicators that it is owned by the town than there are indicators that it is not owned by the town. Now, before the assessor retired, not the recent one, but the one before, he showed me a copy of the property card with a 10-foot curtilage that goes around the entire structure, around the deck, around the outdoor storage area, et cetera, and like a dotted line almost going around the dock. And he explained it to me that the dock was owned by the town, but the restaurant was taxed on it because it was exclusively for the use by the restaurant, which would explain why the 10-foot curtilage line cuts across the dock 10 feet out from the building. But because the past records are gray, in essence, more research needs to be done, and perhaps an agreement with the current leasee, with the leaseor, to come to a conclusion if everyone's in agreement and get it settled once and for all, and change the lease and, make it, the land that the dock, that the steps go down, the banking onto the dock, that land is all a park. There is a separate property card for that entire length of the bay.
We get the town assessor, you get the deed from when the town took it over from Madeline Adams.
Yes, I can have him, today was his first day, but yes, I can.
Yeah, we want to torment him, see how good he is. And then get the first lease and a copy of all the leases up through to see, make sure nothing was changed in the leases.
So the current owner of the building, I guess you'd say, is familiar with the property since 1993.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen documents prior to 1993 from the 1980s from different people who had it, and a letter from an attorney of one of the owners that kind of also indicates during that time that the restaurant owner repaired the dock even though he knew it was not his responsibility. So there are these little tidbits of evidence going over the decades. Unfortunately, when you go back 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years or more, the record keeping in any town is not really what it should have been.
Registry of Deeds should have it. Registry of Deeds should have it.
Last conversation I had with Mr. Schubert, he also was going to do research on photos. He believes he has photos that goes back 50, 60 years of the dock space, what was there at the time, and that may be helpful as well.
Should have some right over the museum. The other one that should have a bunch of them is
Historical Society will have it.
Marty.
Mr. Chairman, could I also, I'd like to get some clarification on that 10-foot curtilage. Because when you go down to get the tax card, it is not on it. I know I talked to you about this issue, Ruben, and you showed me this 10-foot curtilage. And where'd that come from? Because that's not in the lease. It doesn't mention, to the best of my ability.
Should have used to.
So I guess instead of,
I've seen it.
Used to.
Doesn't say anything about a 10-foot curtilage.
so instead of going around chasing all different avenues, the attorney has it now, all the paperwork. Is that correct? And he's reviewing it?
He has everything that I've provided to him, and you know, unfortunately, this state of emergency has put a monkey wrench into everything. So everything has kind of come to a screeching halt temporarily. And we're just hoping that as the weeks go by, that perhaps we can get going again and, you know, come to a win-win type of an agreement between the town and the restaurant owner to finally put this issue to bed and move on.
Well, I think
Yes.
You know, whichever way it goes.
Whichever way it goes.
Put it to bed and move on.
Both
Because
parties are eager to work with it, and he's very cooperative and wants to work with the town in any way possible.
And the thing that,
sure it's a town dock, and I think that we need to.
I believe it
up
is.
and fix
I
it.
believe it is.
One at a time, guys.
thing that, I have a very good working relationship with David Shibley. And the thing that, and I have a lot of respect for him, and he's a very honest man. And the thing that he
Good
said,
family.
exactly. The thing that he said last fall was that he was not sure of the owner of the dock, but he knew that he was responsible for 10 feet out on that dock. So,
He's also said that to me as well.
I understand that, Mr. Chairman, but he has been paying taxes on it. But I don't know how long. That might be something else to find out. But on that 10-foot curtilage, Mr. Chairman, there's also I believe it's a compressor room that was added on.
The walk-in.
Well, the walk-in up on the.
We gave him permission to extend that.
Walk-in cooler?
Yes, we gave him permission to extend that out another 10 feet.
Yeah. Because that goes out beyond that, supposedly,
Yeah.
that curtilage.
Yeah, he came in front of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
he has written permission.
Yeah.
That was quite a few years ago.
Yeah, because he couldn't store the food,
Okay, no
so
problem.
he wanted to put just a little bit bigger in, and we said, yeah.
Okay, as long as he, you know.
That is in the minutes, and I can't tell you what year, but I do remember that.
Yeah, I got no problem with that. I just thought that, I don't want that to become a problem.
Well, it was only a few years ago that he asked to rebuild it. To rebuild it, and then.
Yeah, and then he put a fence around it.
Back on, and put a fence around it.
Yeah. That was,
Right.
There was a fence on it before, and the old fence was removed.
yeah, so it was, she had just come in when we did that.
So if there's nothing else in this, we'll have the town assessor looking when he can, but we'll still wait to hear back from the attorney. If we haven't heard in a month, we'll bring it up. Where we're at with it, or see if we've gotten any further on it because of the coronavirus. If not, then we'll have to wait. But nothing right now, it stands as is, taped off, no access because it's unsafe.
In fact, John had looked at it, the other day.
Problem you got is,
He deemed the stairs to be okay, but the deck itself was, to be cordoned off.
but the problem we got is we're cutting it off, but we're still allowing its use.
We're still using the stairway going down all
All one piece.
The stairway has been accessed off too. There's a camper on the top of the
The
stair.
other
No,
stairway
no,
by
no,
Shibley,
stairway against the building. That's what he's talking
you're
about.
still allowing people to
Well,
use that.
no,
And if
we
something
should have gone
happens-
down and ripped it all off so nobody can go up there.
You
so
can't,
wait, so,
you
yeah,
can't
there's-
because he's gotta go down to go
No,
underneath
you
the
don't
prep
understand.
room.
It's just the stairway going down the side, it's up against the building. To go underneath, that's where all their equipment is. That's where the prep room's got. They need to get into that.
Well, then you allow Shibley to use it, but that's his 10-foot curtilage.
Yes.
Right.
So he can use that, but anything beyond that 10-foot, nobody should be using. And that should be ribboned off.
But I've seen it too, what Virgil's talking about, it separated a little bit. I know last year they redid those side stairs and did that, but that deck right there is attached to those stairs on that small section. Well, when I say that, that's not gonna go anywhere, not up against the building.
Mr. Chairman?
All right, so we're gonna table this at this point because there's nothing more we can discuss on it tonight.
Can I take one quick?
Yes, sir.
We had, building inspector look at it,
Yes.
and he claimed it was unsafe.
Yes, sir.
Did he give us that in writing?
Not believe I have in writing. He went back to Liz and reported to her, but if you'd like to have it in writing, we will get it from
I
you.
have it in the email. He emailed me.
So you got the email on record?
And he ribboned it off. He ribboned it off so the public can't use it.
They riveted it off the next day.
Yeah, but I just wanted a building inspector.
Yep.
I don't want, that was part of my, the motion, I believe, that he look at it. I want to make sure it's on record.
Okay, moving on to number 4, Water Department. Virgil?
They have been having a little problem down there with plumbers turning on town water for the camps. Now, when that happens, we have to pay for them to go out, drill the curb stops, and get locks on them. And I just think that we should work on getting an ordinance in there that they'll get fined if they do it, because they shouldn't be touching the town water pipes.
Courtney is working on one, because it was talked about. I believe Liz has talked to her about it. At the meeting today, it was discussed, and Courtney is preparing something for us to bring forward to amend the rules and regulations of the Alton Water Department. We just have to wait for her to bring it forward to us and present it to us.
Yeah, because right now, the policy or ordinance or whatever the document is, says that only the water department is allowed to turn on at the curb stop. Joe Q. Public is not allowed to,
Right.
but there's no penalty for that.
And that's where I think the problem is. So I think that we gotta think about putting a penalty on it to put a stop to it.
And I think we should, you know, that's not that difficult to do.
Well, the problem is when they screw it up, they leave.
Well,
And
well,
we're responsible.
if I'm not mistaken, we discussed that in emergency management meeting. No. Anyhow, I believe there's a state RSA in that too.
The other thing is,
I was gonna call Courtney about it. I know she's talking to chief.
there'd be penalties advised if they did it with the electric company or a private water company. So we do need something in the ordinance. Courtney is working on it, so as soon as she has it done and Liz reviews it, sends it to town attorney, they'll bring it before us for us to talk about and vote on, correct?
Put a penalty on it.
There will probably be a penalty involved, yes, that's what they're working on, but they want to make sure they're doing it
Well,
legally.
we're the ones that gotta set the penalty.
They're going to come with recommendations what the penalty should be, but it has to go before the town attorney to make sure it's legal, the way we're providing it. So come back to town administrator for her to present it to us, and Courtney present it to us at that point.
We best look also, Mr. Chairman, into the fire hydrant issue. That is exactly the same.
What, they're tying into the fire hydrants?
You can't, nobody can, there is a strict RSA on that one.
Yeah.
State fire hydrants, but, nobody can, people have hooked on the fire hydrants for water usage in the past, in my experience as 11 years as a water commissioner. Golf courses used to have a great pull up and put the line right in their tank, make fertilizer, you know? Been doing it for years, just like, you know, this is how things were done. And, you know, they weren't trying to do anything wrong, but we had to put a real quick stop to that. And, you know,
Especially if it's town water.
but I don't know if we got it on our books with a penalty too.
I think the fire hydrants might have locking mechanisms on there.
Oh, no, you just go for the wrench, take the cap
But
off.
unfortunately for the town of Alton, no one has ever, that I've known of in all the years I've lived.
Never touched the hydrants.
Attached to the fire hydrants and hooked on.
Well, what are you gonna do, wait for somebody to do it? and
No,
then
no,
right
but
where we
it's-
are now?
But it's one thing, what I would suggest to you, if you folks want, you were water commissioner, should have gotten a book of the rules and regulations of the water department. Fire hydrants should have been addressed in that. And when you were water commissioner, were you given a book of the rules and regulations?
The previous water commission?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
None of you gentlemen have one. I would say you request one, see what you want to look into it, and what you might want to change, or what we need to improve for the water users in the community. We can bring this back up. We will be bringing this back up at a later date when
Yes.
Liz hears back. Any further discussion on that? Next one's going to be the
Now it's Paul, right? The wall.
collapse wall, yes. Paul.
Yes, right alongside the abutting property to Hummy Park, where their boathouse is, and set of stairs and a deck, dock that goes alongside their boathouse. There's a short, I would say anywhere from 8 to 10 foot Allen block wall that was right up against the old existing wall that was there for a few years, the old wall that was there for many years. When the new wall was taken down and the old wall was taken down, new one was built, it seems though that water washed out behind it, and looks like it may have froze, pushed, and that embankment caved, and the wall fell over. It fell over into the water.
Kenny said that they're gonna rebuild that wall and get back in.
We talked about it, and in fact, I called Ken this morning, went down and looked at it, and I said, there were still blocks sitting on the dock, on the deck, and they were all over the stairs, and I said, it looked like a mess. I said, it should go over there and clean those off. When I stopped in, saw Ken was there, and when one of the men, was down in the water, and it was cold, and he was picking up the blocks and trying to reset them. Once you wait till it gets a little warmer, and let's just get them off the dock, that's all we're looking for, to get them moving. So basically, what I'm saying is I'd like to document that we should be resetting that wall and rebuild it up. It was not tied into the embankment in any way. It was just a freestanding block wall. There was nothing attached to it, but Ken did suggest putting some rods to come out around alongside it and to try to help the wall from collapsing again, and then to rebuild the wall.
But the collapse of the wall was from our construction.
It wasn't that way at the very beginning. We don't know for sure, but I took pictures. I can show. It looks to me as some of the water had washed alongside the wall, got down behind it, and probably froze, and it pushed. And just now, the wall was already leaning. It was slightly leaning, and I think there was just enough water pushed behind it and knocked the rest of the wall right into the water and onto his dock. And I just thought it'd be nice if we removed the blocks off his dock and stairs. And he was there today. We spoke with Ken for a second. I spoke with him for a few minutes, and he understands that it's going to be restacked.
Could we get Liz wants to say something, hold on.
So, I have photos, and information on that, and, I've forwarded that to Mary to include with all of the Harmony Park retaining wall data that you will receive when it gets scheduled onto the agenda next week or the week after, or whenever, when you make a decision on the bids and everything. The one thing that Ken mentioned to me on the phone this morning about that was, it's not a retaining wall, it's just
It's out wall.
somebody used white caulking, so
That's what held it.
it wouldn't, he talked about the way it had been, I guess there's a way you have to set them and stuff an inch back, it wasn't.
Mr. Chairman, if you look at the situation down there, that's a natural place for water to come running down through. And they've done work, you noticed up there, trying to block it off over the years, put that wall up. And I mean, if you put that wall back, you just go by, all it is that blocks piled on top of each other. There's nothing behind it that's any good.
No, but we did the work there, so whether we dump a little bit of stone in there or whatever we gotta do,
Well,
it would work right up against it. You gotta,
Well, if you're gonna fix it, you're gonna have to start fixing it somewhere near right, or it's just gonna do it again. Yeah, I mean.
well, Kenny will fix it right.
The unfortunate part of this, we need to put it back the way it was, that's it. That's what we're responsible for. The way the new Harmony Park wall came into play there, and the way it ran up in that banking, we lost the natural slope, the way the water would run down into its Harmony Park. And I feel we forced it off or to the other property, the way the retaining walls are.
Now we gotta fix it.
So I feel we should put it back the way it was. We shouldn't do anything more than what it was.
Well, the way it was, Mr. Chairman, was not right.
No, what I'm saying is, we need to put it back to where it was.
Ken is available if you want to.
We can, or we can wait for this in 2 weeks. I really don't want to,
I would wait for 2 weeks till we get all the paperwork.
Not that I don't want to talk to Ken, but I'd like to see us wait till we have it all together.
I agree, we gotta put it back. But how are we gonna,
So we'll table this.
We do need to put it
It
back.
look pretty, that's all.
Gentlemen, we have to go back to the thought of one person at a time, because there's a lot of gargling going on over the phone. So I'm going to ask Josh, he's going to play you something, hopefully later on, to show you how we sound when we're all talking together and what the people are hearing on the other side. So maybe we can think about that before we interrupt. And unfortunately, I think we're going to have to raise our hand up, let the one person finish talking first, then go to the next person, because it's a phone. So I would say that we put this off till next week or the week after, when Mr. Robinson would come back with all his plans for Harmony Park wall. And also he can look into this wall further and let us know. That's all right with you, Paul?
Just want to add to that, he was also going to talk to GMI about it as well.
So we'll wait in 2 weeks and have it back on our agenda when Mr. Robbins has the rest of the information for us from the previous meeting. Sound good?
Yes.
Good. All right, moving on to Selectmen's report. I'll go to Mr. Holt.
You doing, Ken?
The road survey?
Oh, excuse me, I apologize for that, Ken. Highway Department bid award survey for church and school streets. I overrode it. Mr. Roberts, are you with us tonight?
Yes, I am.
There he is.
Thank you, sir. So you have a recommendation for Richard D. Bartlett Associates LLC in the amount of $7,550 for Church Street and School Street, correct?
Yes, that was a low bidder.
And you got everything in your bid specs the way you want it, what will be laid out and how it'll be laid out and everything?
Yeah, it includes all water lines, all shut-offs, all drainage systems, exactly what's underground as well as above ground.
Okay, will we have,
Kenny, are they gonna put granite, markers in? Right
No, it
away?
wasn't requested. It was to identify the property lines, not granite markers.
Then why do we force, planning board forces anybody that does roads or anything to put granite markers in?
That's all new roads, and that's all the new layout roads. They asked for granite markers to be put in play.
I know, and where this is in town, I would think that we would dump granite markers in so everybody knows our right-of-ways.
Well, we're only doing survey of what's existing. We're not laying out a new roadway. You know, that's not what we put in for the bid specifications. If you'd like granite markers, that's something we can identify with the surveyor and see what extra cost that would be. We didn't require it in the bid.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes, sir.
After the survey is done, and selectmen go through everything, we decide to go ahead with road reconstruction and new water main. You'll be able to read those property lines and know where the property lines go and exist. You could put pins in yourself or granite markers yourself, couldn't you, off that survey?
Yeah, and they'll identify them with grade stakes, pretty much where the lines are, and we'll go over it with the surveyors at the time so we know exactly where they're at, because we have such a big question mark on School Street itself because of its width. And that's the reason it has to go back to the Board of Selectmen for discussion.
So that's something you can do by putting markers in yourself while you're working with them anyways, correct? Because you'll be established by grade stakes?
Yeah, and we've done that in the past on all roads. We just established a grade stake line. And if there is pins, they'll be well identified.
Because that could save us a couple of $1,000s right there from buying the granite posts, marking them, and having them installed. Did it ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, we're better off to have iron pins in that are buried just under the surface, because you can find them with metal detectors if they're not above ground. That's the only good thing about metal pins.
Gentlemen, anybody else have a question, Mr. Roberts? Mr. Holt?
On the bids specs, I don't see a completion date or when they're gonna start.
We don't have any of that. We have to be put in their schedule if we award the bid to this company. We had 4 companies bid on it. So until we award the bid, we won't know anything.
He doesn't know anything till the bid's awarded. Then they'll give him a start date.
We have to be put into their schedule, according to Mr. Roberts, once we award the bid.
Well, okay, have we ever done business with this company before?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay? I would really like to know a start date. I think it's kind of important.
But they won't give it, they would never put in a bid for a start date unless they knew they were gonna get awarded the bid. Because they're not gonna rely on the town of Alton. As a contractor, I wouldn't rely on the town of Alton to tell me if I'm gonna get the bid. I'm gonna go out and find as much work as I can.
Right.
But I'm gonna stop here, and Liz had a,
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment on this particular company. The town of Alton, at least since I've been here, we have not used them for work. However, we have dealt with them in regards to properties in the town, such as the Bayer property down on Hopewell Road and that entire area. This company, for the previous owners of that property now, because all the properties have been sold.
But they worked on the taxes part of it?
No.
Oh, survey?
No, yes, yep. They're the official surveyors for
There.
all, yes, for,
Oh, he didn't do it for the town.
Correct, that's right. In fact, I was involved in a legal meeting here with Ken and their sergeant and our attorney and a couple of other people actually. Found the company to be very professional. Mr. Bear's gonna hire them. They're
Good. And the reason I asked that question is I'm not familiar at all. Good, thank you.
Any other questions from Mr. Roberts?
Ken, this is Paul. Did we work with Norway Plains before?
Yes.
They're usually the ones we use, right?
Yeah, we've worked with most of the companies at one time or another, depending on how the bids came through.
they're all good companies on this list here.
Yeah.
And I have worked not with them, but remotely related to them through municipalities for all four of these companies. They're all good.
The last company I hired was White Mountain Survey, I believe, for Lily Pond Road. Correct, Ken?
Yes, and we just got an update from them. They'll start their survey right around May 1st.
Make a motion that we award the survey for Church Street and School Street, Bartlett and Associates for $7,550.
Second.
Motion was made by Virgil McDonald, seconded by Phil Whitman. Any further discussion? I'll poll the board. Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Donald?
Yes.
Ruben Wentworth, yes. Voting is the affirmative. Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good night.
You as well.
Take care.
Okay, moving on to Selectmen's reports now. We'll start with Mr. Holt. Mr. Whitman. Mr. Rochelle.
Nothing this evening.
Nothing.
The only two I'd like to see, well, the two of you there, you did have a conference call with to appoint to a meeting to discuss CBA and planning board. And I want the folks to know out there that the town is trying to actively pursue a way that the ZBA and planning board can move forward. Unfortunately, it is taking a little time. I don't want the folks out there that are waiting for hearings to think that the town has just stopped business doing it, but we are trying to find a way, but it could not be done overnight or in a month's time. The IT director, Josh, has been working on it diligently. The emergency management team has been talking about it. The attorney has been talking about it to make sure everything's legal, because the last thing you folks want is a suit or anything coming against you, not allowing someone to have their access or their time in the hearing. So I wanted to just kind of bring that up. You guys have been talking about it with your different boards and stuff. So to let the folks know out there, we are trying to come up with something so where everybody has the same equal opportunity to participate in the hearing.
I'd like to elaborate.
Yes, sir.
On the conference call on Friday for the zoning, if you would like me to.
Right.
Conference call with Attorney Sesco, we decided as a board, after reviewing it and how much time that we have to go, which is only a few weeks till the May 4th deadline of seeing if the governor is going to lift any of the restrictions or not. So we decided as a board that we would just wait and postpone the meetings for the zoning board until the 4th of May, until we find out if there's going to be change by the governor. We felt as though it was important this time because we didn't feel as though that public input was going to be with the current methods that we're doing, so we decided to wait.
And we discussed it today at emergency management too, to get it set up, some type of Zoom where you have them on the screen, you can talk to them, they can talk to you. And that's what we're working on.
Right, and that's what we decided, that since we're so close, we're only a couple of weeks away from that decision, we figured we would wait.
But you don't know whether it's going to get extended or not.
Well, we don't know that. That's why we decided to vote again on May 4th after we find out.
And hopefully, within the management meeting today, that hopefully Josh will have something back by then in case it does get extended out, that we will be able to move forward, hopefully, but I don't want to get people's hopes up either.
Right.
New Hampshire did see a little concern today with some things, and I don't want any of us to get our hopes up. I want it to stay optimistic, but we also have to look at the reality side of things. I guess the way I look at him as the chairman for the board and protection of the citizens of our community is, we watched it develop in New York City and spike. We watched it go to Connecticut. We watched Rhode Island try to set up their borders to stop the traffic from coming in. We've watched Massachusetts now spike, and they're still spiking. The death rate is up. New Hampshire's on the next verge, and unfortunately, with New Hampshire and our community to ourselves is the lake. We have a lot more folks coming in from these places that have had the spike right now. And we all have to be responsible citizens to say, all right, we have to watch ourselves and watch what we do, because it can still spread here.
Southern New Hampshire's getting spikes.
We could still see a spike here. I pray and I hope that we do not. Because so far we have done what we've had to do. And one reason it's been so low in our community, because we have 0 cases, is that we have done what the governor has asked us to do and our police chief and fire chief has asked us to do. And all I can ask of the rest of the citizens is please keep doing what our government officials have told us to do, because it has worked for us. This is one reason we have not turned on our summer water. This is one reason, unfortunately, our restaurants can't open, because we've kept the distance. And all I ask is the folks out there that listen to us, have patience with us. I know 2 months now, it's been a long time. Unfortunately, it might be another month or 2. I hope not. But one thing we have to realize is we'll all be healthy in the long run. We'll be able to see our families the next year, and we'll always have summer in 2021. I know it's not what some folks want to hear, but if we look down the road, it's just a small amount of time we might have to give up to make sure we're all safe.
Better than pushing daisies.
So I guess that would be my selectmen's report tonight, because I really don't have much more to report on. And the town administrator's report's going to come up. You're going to hear a lot of what I could talk about. There's no sense in me talking about it, because she's going to have it in her report. That's all I had to say for that, unless somebody else has something to add.
Just, as you know, I work in a long-term care facility, so we watch the spread of this thing daily. And yes, it did start in the southern part of the state, near Massachusetts. It seems to be, as it's working its way up, on the seacoast.
Yeah.
So where we are, the tip of Winnipesaukee, I agree. For now, at least till May 4th, we need to continue what we're doing. Listen to what the governor has to say at that point. I mean, I understand people will be frustrated that the zoning board can't meet, but from what I understand, we're talking a lot of graphs and maps and things, and to have some kind of meeting, virtual meeting back and forth, that could be very difficult to pull off. And I don't think the citizens would be well served that way.
Well, it's also the planning board, because you got a lot of projects that people want to get going on that are stopped. And some of the people will lose their funding. So they want to get these projects going, but they can't until we get a planning board meeting.
Right.
They're in a catch-22.
Yeah, and also, there are a lot of restaurants that would like to own it too in town.
Oh, yes, they would.
And a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a tough thing. And as far as meetings go, I don't think there's any one of us in this room who'd love to get back to our old meetings with the audience out here.
Right.
I think the zoning board and the planning board would love to get back to their jobs too. We're trying to make it work.
Right.
It's not easy.
Do have one thing to add. Past weekend Sunday was a beautiful, gorgeous day, which really brought a lot of people out. And
Sure did.
there was a lot of people out, and I happened to go through the bay, ride through. I was a little surprised to see, not at Shibley's, but the town sitting area between Shibley's and Moran's Insurance, picnic tables that were there that were sectioned off. At least 4 of the tables people were sitting at, and they were literally sitting on the caution tape and just sitting at the picnic table. So really, these things were done for a reason, to try to keep everybody distance. And there were groups of people down there that was just standing and using the picnic tables, and I was a little surprised.
Well, the only way you can do that with picnic tables is to take them and stack them somewhere anyway. People, you can put rocks on them.
Oh, I know, it was just surprising to see people literally stepped over and sat right on the tape. The tape was still attached, it was stretched.
The only other thing we can do is take them and bring them up to Parks and Recs.
Anything else, gentlemen? Okay, if not, I'm gonna move on to the town administrator's report so she can get through this.
Okay, I have several items. The first has to do with Route 11 at Mount Major. And as you know, there's been quite a traffic issue there with the hikers and everything. And so the DOT, per request of the EMT, has temporarily closed off parking on the road on the westbound lane. DOT said if the town would like to have that permanently closed on the westbound lane, they would need a letter from the board, so from the Board of Selectmen. So this is something I'm bringing to your attention from the EMT for your consideration to have it permanently closed for parking along Route 11 in the westbound lane. And if you would like to do that, then I will draft up a letter and send it off to DOT.
Definitely a growing problem with people that are parked in the westbound lane have to cross over to the east side to get into the parking lot to go up the mountain, so.
And it's a 55-mile-an-hour zone there too.
They walk right down that road. They don't step in between cars or anything.
No.
They go right out on the
People
road.
just walk right out.
Gentlemen, one at a time, please.
It's important to take that into consideration on the west side to be closed, so people aren't crossing the road.
Can we do both sides?
No, I don't.
Well, you want to state what was stated in the meeting this afternoon about that?
We have to vote.
There were a lot of things.
We have to make a motion, right?
Before you make the motion, the police chief is going to have his officers go out and get 2 mile markers on the eastbound lane and the westbound.
That's right.
Police department, I believe, is going to recommend to the board that we ask that the DOT put no parking up on any of the guardrail sides that are down to. Because this weekend, they couldn't park on the westbound lane going up, so they're parking all the way past the scenic view this weekend, right on that curb. So the police chief did go out on Sunday, reviewed certain areas of the town, Reed Road, Mount Major Park, Alton Mountain Road, and Jesus Valley Road. His recommendation would be coming to the board that we go from 1 mile marker to another mile marker, and ask the state DOT put up no parking signs along all guardrail sides of the road. Because this weekend, even though one side, they were parked right out to the white line. So he is going to send his officers out. He didn't know if he'd have time tonight before our meeting, but Liz would be drafting up a letter for us with those mile markers, I believe, is the way it's going to be coming down. And then we should vote on it at that point, at next week's meeting.
Okay.
Does that sound agreeable with you folks on the guardrail sides? So we're going to look at quite a ways at making no parking.
Yeah, I went through Sunday, and it was incredible. I mean, the sign in the parking lot says, when the parking lot's full, the trail's full. Nobody was following that on Sunday. It was incredible being on the cars there.
You said the mile marker sign where the guardrails are. So they'd be parking where the guardrails aren't,
Guardrails aren't,
and they can get off the
they can
road.
get off the
Hopefully.
road.
Hopefully.
Is that on both sides?
Both sides of the road.
So there
Not
will be
parking on the
some
west.
parking.
They're not parking on the west right now, but they have been parking on the west. Up past the guardrail they were, and then you got an open stretch with no guardrail.
Right.
But our concern is both sides with these guardrails coming around the ledges, all the way past scenic view, they were parked there this weekend. So that would make no parking there.
I thought we were gonna keep the west no parking and then no parking.
Only where the guardrails and up past there, yes.
Keep the west side no parking, so they don't have to cross the street or walk up the road.
I understood it as.
Walk right in traffic.
I think the no parking signs only goes up probably about a half mile past on the westbound lane right now.
Basically, it's where the guardrails are too.
We're gonna-
There is a couple spots.
You're gonna choke them back in up there. That's gonna be choked back in. You're gonna have people walking in traffic.
Well, maybe you can call the chief in
The
the
west
morning,
side,
see
no
how
parking.
far that we can go up to the red line.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, and I have to remember too, one at a time, please.
I think we should somehow send them a letter or something asking for the west side to have no parking. And then the east side to have the no parking where the guardrails are.
we can request it, but I'm asking to go from mile marker to mile marker. So when this gets sent up to the Board of Selectmen, we look like we have reviewed it and see how far we want to go out.
Yeah, but I would rather see no parking on the west side at all.
But how far do you want to carry the west side forward? You want to go from Route 11D to Route 11D?
That'd be nice.
And that's what I'm asking the board. So you have a mile marker right at 11D, and at each end of 11D, there's 2 mile markers.
Even if you went on the other side of the scenic view. So you're not on that corner and that whole side by Mount Major, the west side, because what happens is they cross that road, but they walk 2 feet out into traffic lane going down to their cars, and they don't step off for nothing.
You have the chief maybe review this during the week and see how far he feels that this should go from mile marker to mile marker. If we can get a heads up on it, each one can go out and take a look to see where mile marker to mile marker.
I will, yep.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Does that sound good, gentlemen?
Yes.
Okay.
The next item I wanted to bring up has to do with Alton Mountain Road up near the municipal trail system where Mr. Jellius and his wife own the property. That place has been swamped with cars of hikers going up there. And so you have some documents in front of you that say TA report on the top. And there was a recommendation in there from our highway manager who met with Mr. Jellius this morning about signage, no parking signage on Alton Mountain Road.
Liz, I got a question for you too.
Okay,
On your map here for the
Yeah.
fence, the 12 by 8,
yeah.
that's the snowmobile crossing there. What's he putting it right across the snowmobile crossing?
So don't pay any attention to that right now. That's going to be my next item, which is a separate issue.
Okay,
But
we'll go back to signs.
you'll see in your packet a draft of the sign that is to be posted. And then on the next page, you see a handwritten diagram which shows, right, Mr. Chairman? You'll see there are some asterisks that say no parking signs, and then there's a circle with 4 little digits that stick out that says new, no parking on either side. And when you look on the diagram, you can see where those asterisks are and where the little circles are, which go along the road.
Think we need that many signs? Doing mileage of roads?
Well,
That's a lot of signage.
that is what the highway manager is recommending, and I support his recommendation because this past weekend and the weekend before, it was a problem up there. The police were called. There were cars all over the
And I
Class
understand that.
5 road and the Class 6 road. The easement area for parking was full.
I understand that, but that's an awful lot of signs for a small stretch.
So I asked Mr. Roberts, the highway manager, to attend this portion of the meeting, and he is live.
Ken, are you back with us?
Yes, I am, sir.
Okay.
Kenny,
Yes, sir.
how long of a stretch is this that we've got 5, 6, got 10 signs in there?
Well, in total, it's probably about 900 to 1,000 feet. And what it is one of the question marks I've come up with is the signs that you see at the end of pavement up to his driveway.
Yeah.
I think this is more of a temporary thing and it's a COVID-19 thing. But what it is, it became where in some places it was impassable by other vehicles. So some people may have been stuck in there trying to get out because people were just parking on the side of the road and weren't thinking about another vehicle coming out. So, you know, when this originally was designed, there was only 2 small parking areas that probably held about 15 cars.
Right.
But the problem is because we posted it up further, what I'm afraid is they're going to start lining up on the Class 5 section, which hasn't been dug out or anything on that dirt section. It's not wide enough to park a car on the side and still get safety vehicles by it if we had to get in there. So I'm looking at, this is temporary. Yeah, I think this is temporary signage because people were going to say, oh, I didn't see it. You know, it's kind of what's going on in the Bay right now, but you know, it's temporary signage. I think we need to have it there for a little bit. Maybe we can reduce some of it and then be able to take it up.
Okay,
Ken, are you showing just 5 more signs, right?
10.
Right, we have the ones that are, the stars that you see are already in place, and they adhere to that, but what they do is they all parked on the other side of the road, which there isn't really parking spaces on the other side of the road. The parking is only done at the back end of that lot. That's what it was designed for. It wasn't designed to have roadside parking.
Yeah, I'd say add the 5.
Yeah.
So the only concern I'm gonna have, Ken, because I think once you put those signs up this week, then they're gonna go all the way out to Alton Mountain Road, start backing up Mountain Road. We're gonna be back here next week, but I guess we'll have to wait to hear from them, but I have no problem with the signs.
Yeah, the only thing good about Alton Mountain Road, if I may, is that it is really super wide.
Yes.
You know,
Right.
that if you parked on one side of the road, it wouldn't be an issue like you parked on Route 11. But to park on that dirt section, it's so narrow already, to be able to get by it would be a little tough.
And I have no problem with the signs on the dirt section, not whatsoever. I think it's a good move, and I believe you're right. I think it possibly will be temporary until the fall comes or something like that. But with all the no parking we're gonna put up, we're gonna have a lot more cars everywhere.
Yes.
So, gentlemen, do I have a motion to approve the signage request from the Highway Department for up on Alton Mountain Road?
Second.
Motion was made by Bill Whitman, I take it, and second by Mr. Holt. Any further discussion? I'll poll the board. Virgil?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Ruben, yes. Vote is the affirmative. Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
Yes, sir.
Actually, you might want to stay on the line because we're going to be coming right up to you on Jesus Valley Road too, I believe.
Yes.
So the next item I wanted to bring to the board's attention also has to do with the same location that you just made a motion on. And if you go back to the chart, the handwritten diagram, you will see there's an arrow that indicates a fence approximately 12 feet by 8 feet. Now, the fence is a request of Mr. Jelly, the property owner, to put it up so that he cannot see where the snowmobile comes across. Now, this particular request is, this is outside of the easement area, and if you look at the signed easement, you know, if that had been in the easement, we could do it, but because it's not within the easement area, it's on private property, I am recommending to the board that we not do it, but I am also recommending that the board be okay with me contacting Russ Wilder or Gene Young of the Conservation Commission, or perhaps the Mount Major Snowmobile Association, and there are other organizations that work with trails and everything, and perhaps they would like to help Mr. Jellius, who was kind enough to give the municipal trail easement through the 2 warrant articles a couple of years ago, and perhaps these organizations could get together and fulfill the request of the fence, the one piece of fence section.
This should be, I make a motion that we give this to Conservation Board. This was Conservation's project. Conservation pays for the street lights up there because we voted down the street lights because we said, no, we're not putting in private street lights. Conservation now pays for their street lights, and I think that, I make a motion that we hand this back over to Conservation and say, finish your project.
And you know,
It should come out of their budget, not the town's.
So I have had some email conversation with Russ Wilder, who's on the Conservation Commission, and some other organizations. It was like an email chain, and I think they would be more than willing to step in and help with
Well, Russ gets along with Mr. Julius very well. And this has been Russ's project up there, and I think Conservation Board should stay with this project. I mean, they went up, they cut the trees, they helped build the parking lot. They've done all this work up there, and they've done a great job. I mean, it's a nice hiking spot, but I just think that this is Conservation's project.
So just a general consensus would be fine you know, for you not to make a motion for the town to install it, but instead for me to reach out to these couple of organizations to see if they can get together.
My motion is to give this to Conservation, nobody else, and then they can reach out to whoever they want to. But this is a conservation project, and that's where it should stay. They started it, and that's where it should stay.
So is that your motion?
Yes.
I was seconding Mr. McDonald's motion.
Second that motion.
Any further discussion? All the board. Virgil?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Bob? Ruben, yes. Vote is in the affirmative.
Thank you. My next item has to do with boat trailer parking in the bay. To the.
This is every year with this too, ain't it? It's every year.
So if you can picture in your mind, if you're standing on Route 11 and you're looking at Pop's Clam Shack, right to the left of the building, there's a little gravel parking area where his employees park. Come to find out that land is owned by the Christian Conference Center. It comes down the hill and there's just a little thing there. And there are certain pickup trucks with boat trailers that are using that area to park. Pops doesn't know who these people are in the pickup trucks, neither does the Christian Conference Center, neither does the town, but everybody's seen them, I've seen them. And so in order to be consistent with the ban of trailer parking in the bay, I am looking, it was discussed at the EMT meeting this morning, so sorry, I got kind of off track here, to put up a sign in that parking area, no trailer parking in the bay. We don't allow it anywhere in the bay.
Right.
Right now it's going on in that little gravel parking lot.
Yesterday, there was one parked right in front of the clamshell.
Let me ask you
There
something.
was, right?
There was.
In front of the clamshell was probably somebody they knew that he might have gave permission to, because that's what he did tell us. The place that they're parking right now, it's shared property right now. Part of it's owned by the campground, part of it's in our parking lot, plus they're blocking the crosswalk that goes from our cross sidewalk into Ponds.
Campground's been very fair to us.
So the reason being, I did talk to Mr. Smith, he did come in my store, and the chief had reached out to him, hadn't had a chance. And he said he's very willing to work with us, and he had no problem with that. The chief is going to double check on my conversation, but it needed the Board of Selectmen to put up 2 signs on that private property. We can't put them at the end of the town property, because then we're blocking the access to Mr. Pop's employees from parking in there, plus he has a dumpster there he needs to get in. That's why we're suggesting you go at the back end of the parking lot, put up the no trailer sign.
Let me ask you this. Gonna block this section off. Are we gonna have trouble with them backing them up onto the lawn down there that we put in?
No, there's a fence there. They're already backed up on the lawn and into the bank.
Yes.
That's how far they're going back on, and they're still in the town, part of the town right away. So what this does, this alleviates that problem. It keeps our crosswalk open, because one, you're not supposed to park on the crosswalk anyways.
They shouldn't be putting boat trailers in there. I mean, there's signs down there, and
Well,
we ought to be towing them.
but they just feel it's a place to get away because there's no signs, there's no signs right there.
Over that side,
So
right?
what the town administrator is asking is that the highway department be able to put 2 no parking signs in.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Possibly.
His arm's gotta be getting heavy.
Mr. Holt.
That's private property. If the town of Alton puts the town of Alton no parking signs up there, no parking signs by state RSA have to be approved by the Board of Selectmen. Start off. Those signs could not be, they can't be enforced on private property. Town of Alton's got no business putting no parking signs on private.
It says no trailer parking.
And they're sticking out,
Trailer parking.
but,
Thing.
but Bob, they're also, by them putting them there, they're blocking our walkways, which is town-owned, and we've worked very well with that campground and Pops doing all them projects down there and stuff.
That's not the issue, Mr. Chairman. I think they should be. But I don't think they should be no trailer parking.
It could be, because if they park there after you put the signs up, one, you can put them for the no parking, the trailer, plus 2 is blocking a crosswalk the police department could get. They're trying not to do that, but if they have to, we will. Because right now, they're parking over the crosswalk itself.
They're parking over the crosswalk, Mr. Chairman. That's against the law. Enforce it.
3 signs up there, what I'm recommending that we do the 3 signs. I don't know about all of you, but at least I'm recommending, and the police chief is recommending it to us too.
Is that a motion?
Paul's got a question.
Would it make sense to talk to the campground and ask them if they want to put the signs up?
What, have them pay for them and stuff?
Have them pay for it and have them, and then we would be covered, they would be covered. We're not putting signs on private property. ask them, would you like to put signs out there? Ask them first and let them put the 2 or 3 signs up. It'll be on their responsibility, their properties. And then if anybody is still parking on that area, and they're parking in front of or on top of the crosswalk, then we enforce the law.
That's fine.
Sounds like a good,
Yep. That's fine.
so I'll call Brad Smith and find out if he's okay with that.
Any other further discussion on that item?
Yeah, I think that if he's helping them, I think he should be allowed to have the town crew help put the poles in. He ain't got the help down there.
Okay. Well, we'll have Liz relay that to him. The board feels all right, once we hear back from Liz. All right, next is the Jesus Valley Road, no parking and signage.
I don't see paperwork.
Right, there was no paperwork, due to the hikers. Ruben, you might want to help me out with this one. So, there was a request to possibly put some signage up there, maybe on one side of the road versus both sides, up at the end.
That ain't real wide down in there though.
But,
What's Leo?
Leo's is where Michelle Lang lives now.
Right.
Robbie Lang, that's where Bob, Mr. Boudreau lived and the father lived for many years in the
Right.
homestead. What they're doing is parking in her dooryard. She allows access to the trails to her dooryard, but they've been parking in the dooryard and then they're parking on the side of the road, which is making it very narrow. It's very hard to even pass 2 cars on our road. This is at the very end of the road. And unfortunately, we have this sign pollution going on in our town because I don't like the way the bay looks with all the trailer parking and all the ordinances. We got this sign pollution going on. Now we're putting it on country roads because folks can't use common sense to say, yes, I really shouldn't park down here because I shouldn't park on a white line because it's very dangerous to motorists coming by, but I don't care, I want to go hiking. So it's forced us to put sign pollution in. Hopefully this would only be temporary, but last weekend, the police department, they get calls, the fire chief went up, the police chief went up, they looked at it, they looked at the egress in case they got to get an apparatus through, it'd be very hard. So police chief looks at it, the longer it takes when you get through a road with a piece of apparatus, that might not save someone's life. So they're asking to be able to put signs up there for no parking in between, not lining the whole road with no parking sign, but no parking in between signs so they can spread them out a little bit further.
Who's recommending that?
Fire chief, police chief.
Oh, good.
It's dangerous. The way they explain it, it got pretty tight to even get the apparatus in.
Oh, no. Oh,
And Ken's gonna be involved in that too. I contacted him this afternoon and asked him to get with the 2 chiefs and.
So Ken, what they were saying is possibly maybe no parking in between signs so they wouldn't have to put up as many. Are you there with me?
Yes, I am. I was just thinking, I'm about to order some of these. It may take a week or so to get them.
Yeah.
I have no parking signs here, but I don't have any more of the in-between signs, but I can get those.
Yeah, part of this problem, Ken, is on conservation, we kind of started advertising on the phones and stuff, Hike Alton, and showed the trails before the COVID-19 started because we wanted to show people what we've got to offer. And I think they finally found the sites. So I don't know if it's going to get better or not because, some of it, they're beautiful hiking trails.
Well, Ken, whatever you can do to come up with an idea on these 2 roads that will help the citizens that live on those roads, especially at the end of them, that would be a big help. In the meantime, while you get your signs in, you can come up with an idea, or even if it's your barricades that we put up along the side, no parking, just temporarily. I
know just to mention, there are 2 other signs I'd like to get is no parking beyond this point, and that would keep them away from the houses. And, just down below, and then one side of the road will post, and hopefully if everybody's parked on one side, then it'll still be passable.
You folks,
I make a motion that we allow Kenny to put no parking signs up on Jesus Valley Road.
Second.
motion has been made by Virgil to allow Kenny to put up no parking signs on Jesus Valley Road. And I would say at the end, we don't really need it down at Route 11.
But we've got to make sure there's 2 big ones right in front of Rubens.
Sure. Seconded by Rochelle. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Roll call, I'm sorry, pull the board. We got Mr. Holt,
Yes.
Mr. Whitman,
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth, yes. Votes in the affirmative.
Thank you. That's all I have at this time.
And that is the end of the
That's
town
it?
administrator's report.
Wow.
We'll move on to the consent agenda, approval of minutes, March 31st, 2020, non-publics.
So may I speak to this?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman? Okay, so the board approved these on April 13th. And there was discussion about whether to release them or not. And the information in these was kind of mixed. Some it could be released, some it couldn't. So I contacted Attorney Sessler and I put sub-paragraph numbers on these. And as you go through the pages, you'll see whatever is in red cannot be released.
And what were we releasing before? Nothing?
So, right, everything was sealed, basically. But it is, some of it can be released.
Okay. Motion that we, minutes of March 31st for non-public session to release everything but section D and section F,
2D and 2F.
or 2D and 2F.
Motion is made by Burrs McDonald to release the March 31st, 2020 non-public session minutes, but not to divulge 2D and 2F.
Second.
Second on that. I will pull, any discussion? I will poll the board. Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle,
Yes.
Mr. Whitman,
Abstain.
one abstention. And that was because Mr. Whitman was not here. Mr. Holt,
Yes.
Wentworth, yes. Vote is in affirmative, 4-4, one abstention.
Thank you.
Approval of April 6, 2020 regular minutes.
Chairman? Sir, could I just comment on that? My past practice on executive sessions, we used to, at the end of the executive session, we'd seal portions of the minute then,
Yes, sir.
and the rest would be kept for so long, and then could be open to the public.
1 year.
Yeah,
But we used to do that night.
we do. With this particular set, everything was sealed because of small letter I, which had to do with emergency functions.
Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you.
April 6, 2020 minutes.
Make a motion, we approve the April 6th minutes.
Second?
Motion made by Burns McDonald, second by Mr. Holt to approve the April 6, 2020 minutes. I'll poll, any discussion? I'll poll the board. Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle,
Yes.
Mr. Whitman,
Yes.
Mr. Holt,
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth, yes. Votes in the affirmative. Next, we'll move on to the consent agenda approval. Before you on your table there, you should have a full list of the consent items. Most of it's the annual merit increase for employees and one end of probation for one highway department employee.
So, March 2nd. Still got minutes. March 2nd, non-pub.
I have nothing here. March 31st and April 6th minutes is all we had.
Oh,
Yeah,
nothing?
we didn't have it on public on April 6th.
No, it says March 2nd, non-public. I'm just the lucky one that got that page.
Let's go back here a little bit.
That's the April 6th that you're going to.
That's the one we're on now. Let's go forward, March 20 on public. That's our minutes from our meeting when we voted, we did the roll call on what to include and not include. That was the one we were.
So we don't have to
This
approve
is,
these?
yeah. This is our minutes. We have to approve the minutes as we did them last week. This is just the minutes on the non-public.
Yeah. Are we gonna approve them to release them or
We
no?
didn't have, we just did. We did last week.
We did April 6th, we didn't do
no,
March
we didn't.
2nd.
No, we did last, no, these minutes here, we approved them from the from the March 2nd meeting. That's why Mr. Holt had,
We did March 20th and April 6th.
right, but these minutes you're reading now are from our minutes from last week's meeting. So these are minutes that we approved when Mr. Holt wasn't a selectman yet. Phil was excused.
Okay.
these are just what we talked about last week, so we're approving them, but those minutes were in those that we approved at last week's meeting.
Now you get me confused, because why would they be in my book for this week if we approved
Because-
it last?
Because we approved in discussion last,
So look at the page number down on the bottom.
Yeah,
And so you're looking at one set of minutes right there, and within that one set of minutes, towards the end of that meeting is when they approved some previous minutes.
okay,
That might,
I'll trust you. I make a motion, we approve the April 20th consent agenda.
motion was made to approve the April 20th consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Second by Mr. Holt. Motion was made by Mr. McDonald. Any discussion? I'll poll the board. Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth, yes. Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Vote is in the affirmative. All right, next we have discussion action on requests or appointments, and being none. We do have a non-public session tonight, gentlemen, underneath RSA 91-A:3, paragraph 2E. I have a motion to go into non-public session.
Second?
Motion made and seconded by Virgil McDonald. I'll poll the board. Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth, yes. We are now in non-public session. This time, Josh, if you can disconnect us from the telephone and Zoom.